This is Dave Swift, and you're listening to No Good Music.
We have a special guest with us today. He's the bass player in Jools Holland's band, which are about to go on tour. He's also part of the great British music TV show called Later with Jools Holland. He's performed with many legendary musicians, such as Tom Jones, Paul Simon, Cher, and even Sir Paul McCartney. Let's welcome to No Good Music, Mr. Dave Swift. The crowd goes wild.
Live before a studio audience. You're in England right now.
That's right. I'm in southeast London, to be specific.
Yeah.
Okay.
Haven't got there yet. I've toured Scotland, but I've not even set my feet in England yet. So maybe someday.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Well, yes, I was born over here. No, I wasn't born in London, of course. I did move here at some point, but I've been in London. I think since 1988 was when I moved.
Okay.
So.
We want to start out talking about your early beginnings. You had two brothers who played guitar, and you decided to take up the trombone.
Mm-hmm.
How long did that last, and when did you begin learning the bass?
Okay, well, yeah, you're right. My two older brothers, and they still do play guitar, but they never played professionally. It was just a hobby for them. And I had a go on the guitars when I was younger, and it was fun, but I didn't really have that, that you get that draw with certain instruments. They draw you in. I didn't really kind of get it with the guitar. So, but I used to sing a lot. I sang in the school choir. I sang in the church choir. So the voice thing happened way before I took up an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened is when I went to secondary school, which I guess is high school in the States, I've been watching a program called Top of the Pops on TV, very popular live music program, and I was more fascinated with the guys that were playing horns, trumpet and saxophone and whatever, than anything else. And especially the saxophone, I thought, well, that looks super cool, really kind of shiny, and it looks great. So when I went to secondary school, I asked if I could play that, and they said, we don't have any saxophones there. My parents took me to one of these open evenings where you got all these instruments lying around. So no saxophone, that's the question. There was a trombone there. And I thought, wow, that looks even more cool. Sax. What on earth is that with this big slide thing?
No buttons.
But then I went, okay, but that's exactly. And I like weird and quirky stuff, So that's why I chose that. But then they only had one. I gave that to another guy. I ended up with a euphonium, which I didn't know anything about. Obviously euphonium's like a tiny tuba. And I started to study with this because I thought to myself, well, let's give this a go. But I realized that I wasn't going to be able to use it to play kind of in a pop band or a rock band or a funk band. There aren't many euphonium players around. It's pretty much like a brass band instrument. So after studying for about 6 months, I packed it in. I just thought, this isn't working out because this is so far from playing the saxophone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I didn't, that was it. For me, unfortunately, that was the end of my musical studies at school. I kind of gave up on it after that. I was kind of quite disillusioned, and I was very good at sports, so that's where I put my focus.
Yeah.
I was actually a very, very average academic student, so sports is where I excelled. Fast forward to when I was 14 now. So we've jumped from 11 to 14.
Okay. Yeah, and you've jumped in height there too, I'm sure, at age 14.
Exactly that, yeah. I'm still one of the smallest ones. I'm 6'3", and I'm still one of the smaller ones in my family.
Wow.
But anyway, when I was 14, and I really was struggling at school, I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't enjoying the academic studies. I wasn't even studying music. I didn't even take that as an academic subject because I thought, how is that going to get me a job? How ironic. So anyway, the kid that got the trombone back, he carried on studying it all those years. And I said to him one day, I said, well, how is that? Are you enjoying it? He said, yeah, it's great fun. He said, and the best thing is you get to miss an academic subject each week to study.
Oh.
So this sounds good. I like the sound of it.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm going to give this one more try. I was 14, and I went along to see the trombone teacher at the time. And he didn't want to take me on because he said, you're too old, 14. But that wasn't his decision. That was the school's decision. Anyway, he let me have one. He showed me how to play it. He said, come back in 2 weeks and let's see what happens. He thought I was going to come and sound lousy. But what he didn't realize was that I fell in love with the instrument. And I went home and I practiced and I went crazy with it. So when I came back, I could really play it. And he went, okay.
You can play.
Yeah, and that was it. I became his pupil. So for the next 2 years at school, I was studying intensively trombone, like classical technique and everything. And then some of us in the school band, yes, and I was playing in all sorts of bands with it, like, concert bands, wind bands, orchestras, stage bands, funk bands. I was in like a funk horn section, playing like Earth, Wind and Fire, And I thought, this is fantastic, But then some friends of ours at school, we formed an offshoot of the school band, and we had every instrument other than the bass. Mm-hmm. So, and to this day, I still don't know why I volunteered, but I went, yeah, I'll give it a go. Maybe I was kind of feeling super confident because I, the trumpet. So I then got a bass guitar, and then my trombone teacher heard me playing it in the music department, and he said, "Wow," he said, "you're making good progress on that as well." He said, "If you take up acoustic double bass as well, you'll get lots more work." Because he said to me, he said, every band needs a bass player, not every band needs a trombone player.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I took up the bass. I was still at school, so I was like 15, but I was completely self-taught on the bass. But what I was able to do is to take all the trombone knowledge and put it on to the bass guitar. So I could already read like 4 different clefs from being a trombonist. So there was nothing that I couldn't read as a bass player. All I had to do was to learn where the notes were. So all that was still happening while I was still at school.
So all that you learned with reading music from the trombone, you're able to apply that easily, not without too much difficulty, to the bass.
Yeah, because when I was a trombonist, the range of the instrument is so vast. I had to play 4 clefs, so literally treble, alto, tenor, and bass clef. And I had to read all of those and lots of different music and very complicated stuff and, with great range, whatever. So when I came to sort of, play the bass, one of the first things I had to play was like, dun, 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 dun. And I'd already been like on the trombone playing stuff way, way more complex,
Right, you're hearing so much more than that. You can do that, you're doing it, but you're probably hearing and creating all this other stuff while you're playing that. Yeah.
Well, it strikes me a lot of bass players that you hear, especially the great sort of virtuosic ones and the great soloists. A lot of the time, bass wasn't their first instrument. They came to it via something else. I'm a big fan of the late Scott LaFaro, the great jazz double bass legend that famously played with Bill Evans and many others. And Scott was I think he played clarinet and saxophone before he switched bass. And if you listen to him on the bass, he's playing so melodically and very complex harmonically as well. So I think, coming from an instrument was a huge benefit for me. And also, with the great thing with the trombone is that there's no set positions on the trombone slide. Mm-hmm. So when I took up bass guitar, early on I started to play fretless. And of course, double bass is a fretless instrument anyway. Mm-hmm. So the trombone was the perfect instrument to make that transition, because none of these instruments have set positions on there.
Right.
It's all about, it's good ears, and it's about muscle memory.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So for me, that was a huge help, I think, playing that first,
Right.
So
for some of our listeners who aren't musicians, it's important to note that you have to picture the frets on a guitar And that's like, keys on a piano. It's on or off. You're there or you're not. You're there nice and clear or you're not. But with the trombone and the bass, you are moving, sliding with muscle memory or with that constant feedback from your ear to your brain to your fingers. It's that constant feedback to get the exact notes. And that's a really great point. I didn't think about that until you said that.
I mean, because the trombone, it's such a unique instrument in the brass world. It's the only one that has got it.
The only one.
So, and you're making little microtonal adjustments as well all the time, whether it's on trombone or fretless or bass. Not everyone hits the note spot on the first time, but the skill is realizing that and making that adjustment as quick as you possibly can.
That's interesting.
Key thing about playing a fretless and upright the trombone. It's not always possible to hit it bang on each and every time. So you just make those mini adjustments, but it's how quickly that you realize it and how quickly you execute it. That's the key.
And to clarify, the double bass is also known as the upright bass. Is that correct?
Yeah. Do you know what? Even to this day, I'm still. There's so many names for it, but people. So it's the acoustic bass, but some people still call it acoustic bass. String bass is what a lot of people refer to it, because obviously in jazz originally there was a tuba, and the tuba, which I also play incidentally, but the tuba was the original bass instrument. So when the double bass took over, to differentiate which type of bass it was, people did call it string bass. But upright as well. That's quite a popular thing. Although an upright could also mean an electric upright bass, like a stick bass as well. So
and you actually own a variety of basses of types. I'm sure you do. In fact, you just saw a post. Today you posted something. So tell us about your collection or what you posted on.
There was a display. Tell us about that. Of basses with your picture.
That was from a NAMM show. I can't remember what year it was. I think it might have just been pre-COVID. But because I do own a lot of basses. I probably own about 100 bass guitars.
Oh, wow!
I've got 6 or 7 electric upright basses. I've got a couple of double basses, but. A lot of the instruments are vintage, but years ago, I just fell in love with collecting vintage Ibanez basses. I really sort of took to them. And I've got lots and lots of vintage ones from the late 70s, early 80s. And then Ibanez saw me using these instruments, and they said, wow, thanks so much for bringing attention to our brand. Would you like to play some of the newer instruments? And I hadn't checked Ibanez out for the longest time. My first ever 5-string bass was an Ibanez, 5-string bass, and that was back in the 80s. But then for years, the brand went under the radar for me, So when they saw me play these vintage instruments, they said, try some of the new ones out. And I did, particularly the 6-string models, and I love them. I thought these are great. So I wouldn't call myself a poster boy as such. I wouldn't dream of it. But Ibanez very kindly featured me on one of their big banners on NAMM show.
Cool, very cool.
And I think it's got sort of my name and Jools Holland's name underneath, because obviously that's my main gig. So so since 2016, I've been officially using and endorsing Ibanez. So they've been very supportive, using me on their NAMM show backdrops and posters, whatever. So that's what I posted today from the previous NAMM show.
Do you play electric without the acoustic body? Do you play both in performing, or you pretty much go with acoustic? You were talking about having some upright electric, I believe.
Sure. Well, that's a good question, because when I was younger, I pretty much just used to play acoustic double bass, traditional double bass and bass guitars, and that was it. And then when I got the Jools gig in 1991, he was looking for a double bass player. The bass player before me was Pino Palladino, who I'm sure we've all heard of. Pino is a good friend of mine and Jools. In fact, Pino and I used to be neighbours in southeast London back in the 90s. But Pino only used to play bass guitar, so Jools wanted someone who played double bass, and that's how I got the Jools gig, really. But then what happened is I'd never played in venues that large before, and had to play music to that volume. So I was struggling trying to amplify the double bass. It was a real nightmare, like feedback issues and all sorts of things. And I was buying all these electronic devices to try and get rid of feedback and all that stuff. And then by the time you had made all these adjustments, the instrument didn't sound like an acoustic bass anymore, you know. So, but I persevered for a couple of years, and then when people started to make more of the electric uprights, and they got better, I said to Jools, "Listen, do you mind if I switch to one of these things, because they're not acoustic, but they've still got a piezo pickup, they've still got the same scale length as a double bass, they've got the same strings, and I'm sure that I got it to sound as close as possible to a real double bass, and it became like." It was the perfect thing to have. Like I said, I was then getting the volume I needed. There was no feedback. It meant I could leave it with a crew, and if it got a bit bashed or scratched, whatever, it didn't matter, you know.
Instead of worrying about it all the time, right?
Yeah. It wasn't giving the crew a really old, extremely expensive double bass anymore, you know. So yeah, to be honest with you, when I tour with Jools now, the stick bass, as some people call it, electric upright bass, that's what I use more than anything else. And with my double bass, I tend to use that for more controlled, quieter situations. In other words, some TV stuff, definitely album recordings, small groups. Like if I'm doing in London, I'll always use the double bass. But for touring with Jools, the rigors of the road, the electric upright bass is the ideal voice, you know. And you know, and I think I'm sounding pretty close to an amplified double bass.
Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. And it's the stick bass. Yeah, it's a stick. So
the one I use, you know, it's got a couple of shoulders on it. So when you play it, there is some tactile reference.
That's helpful.
To it,
yes.
You know?
Yes.
You know, because the shoulders on it, you know, they make contact with your body where the shoulders of an actual double bass would be, you know. So, I mean, some of them don't have that. Some of them are just the stick, or some of them are on a stand, and you approach it, and there's no reference points at all. But the one I had, shoulders either side of which is helpful, because when you're playing in thumb position and you start to play higher up, you know, your arm hits one of the shoulders, which is like it's a reference point to where you are on the neck. So, So some are better than others, you know.
Yeah.
Now, can you adjust the height on? I know you said you're 6'3". Do you think it helps that you're that tall, or are they adjustable? Or like, no,
it's absolute nightmare. Do you know? I mean, my eldest brother's 6'6". I don't know how he gets on, but I have to say, being tall has never been very helpful to me. I'll be honest. I mean, I love basketball. I'm a big basketball fan. The irony is that if I was a pro basketball player, I'd be the shortest guy on the court.
Yeah.
6'3" basketball is tiny. It's tiny, you know. But thing is, it's still, I guess, the average height for a person. It's still on the tall side. So the problem I've always had with upright basses is the end pin that you use to adjust the height is never long enough. So on every upright bass I own, I've had to have custom end pins made.
Wow.
You know, and also I stand on one of these vibrating platforms on stage.
Okay.
Because I use in-ear monitors, and I use the platform to help with the vibrational thing, you know. So what it means you can, I've still got a rig there. I've still got a rig behind me, but with the in-ears, you know, it makes you feel a bit isolated. So I stand on this platform that vibrates when I play, and it makes your body think you're playing in front of a much bigger rig, you know. So that lifts me even higher off the floor. So I'm standing on that, and I'm then probably like 6'8" or something, you know. So, you know, having the end pin, I had to have them custom made to get it high enough. That's the thing. So
in 1991, that's when you auditioned for Jools Holland. Can you tell us a little bit about your first audition, what that was like, how you heard about it? Or
Yeah. Well, okay. So when I moved to London in '88, I moved here because I'd already been a pro musician for like 7 years or something like that. But the work I was doing, it was great. I was doing cruise ships. I was doing theatre work and stuff, and it was great fun. I was seeing the world and I was earning money, but it wasn't overly fulfilling musically. And I was at home listening to Jaco Pastorius and Stanley Clarke and all this kind of stuff. And I was trying to play all of that music. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to get to play anything like this if I keep doing cruise ships and shows and stuff like that. So I moved to London because I thought there's going to be more opportunities there. And I started to do jazz gigs, and I made sure that I did gigs where I wasn't reading because I could already do that. I was always a good sight reader. And I thought, well, if I come to London and start doing that again, I'm going to get asked to do the same stuff, maybe West End shows or that kind of thing. Not as though there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted to do, I wanted to work with improvising musicians, creative musicians. So I started to do jazz gigs, predominantly on double bass because that's what people wanted. But the fact that I could play both double bass and bass guitar was a big advantage, because back then not many people doubled up. There was a small group of guys that were good bass guitarists, a small group playing double bass, but there were even less guys doing both. So that was a big advantage for me. So I was doing jazz gigs. And I was kind of loving it, sort of improvised music, playing with very creative players. One of the guys I was working with was a saxophone player. He had already got the gig with Jools. Now, bearing in mind back then, this is late 80s, early 90s, Jools wasn't the person he is now. Yeah. He wasn't as famous as he is now because he'd been with that, the band Squeeze, the British pop group.
Yeah, we love Squeeze. Yeah.
He was a founding member, right? And he was only on the first, I think, 3 albums of Squeeze.
Yeah.
Sure. So what happened is that the Jools kept leaving Squeeze and then going back, and then leaving and going back.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think they were thrilled at this, because it was obviously, are you going to stay or what's going on? But anyway, when he eventually left, he didn't have his TV show that he has now. He was starting from scratch. He didn't have a radio show. He didn't have a TV show. It wasn't the household name that he is. Right. So. And the band was smaller as well. It was a 9-piece band. It was 5 rhythm and 4 horns. It's not as big as it is today. It was very, very small. So this sax player had already got the gig with Jools. And then Jools had obviously, Pino had left. And then Jools had said to the guys in the band, listen, if any of you know a bass player, particularly who plays double bass, let me know. Yeah. So this sax player said, Jools is looking for a bass player. Do you want to give it a try? So now, you have to bear in mind that I was really happy suffering from my art at that point. I wasn't earning a lot of money. In fact, I was probably earning less money than I'd ever earned in my life. But musically and spiritually, I was as happy as I'd ever been because I was playing this great music called jazz. And also, like I said, Jools wasn't as famous as he is now. He didn't have a TV show. So when I got asked, I was kind of very casual about it. Okay, I'll give it a try. Quite nonchalant. Quite nonchalant almost. So anyways, I was living in southeast London, not where I am now, because where I live now is very close to Jools' studio. From my house now, it's in a car. It's about a 10-minute drive maximum. Back then, it was probably about a half an hour drive. So I went to the same studio, and I'm there with my double bass. There was Jools was there, and the guitar player there too. And he's still the same guitar player to this day. And I had no clue what we were going to play. And Jools said, "Let's just jam. Let's just do this." So we started to play some
stuff. That's wide open, yeah. Wide open.
No cues or anything like that. Let's just do this. And Yeah, and then we must have played. I don't know how long we played for. Maybe half an hour, maybe longer, but something like that. And anyway, when we finished, Jools turned around to me, and he seemed happy. He wasn't looking at me with horror or anything like that. And he said, "That's really great, but we do have a few other people that we need to look at,
Yeah.
Now that to me sounded like
you're not going to hear from him
giving
again.
someone the elbow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, next, So, and you know what? It didn't really bother me, because again, this was 1991. Jools wasn't who he is now. He didn't have the TV show. Blah, blah. And I was packing my bass away, and he went outside with the guitar player. They came back in, and Jools said, "Oh, what the heck? The gig's yours.
Wow.
We start touring in a couple of weeks." And he gave me a big sort of shopping bag full of cassette tapes of gigs. It was a big old bag of it. Like
I'm picturing that. Yeah, like Santa Claus carries or something.
Yeah, and cassettes as well.
Yeah,
so, and so he said, "Here's some recordings of live gigs and whatever. Have a listen to that, and then we start touring in a couple of weeks." And that was it. And interestingly, I am the only one. I'm the only person in that band that's ever had to audition. Nobody else has had to do an audition in that band.
Yeah.
And so in other words, everyone else got the gig just by recommendation, but Jools trusted the recommendations. I think with me, because the bass for Jools is really important. It's a crucial instrument to Jools. And obviously he had Pino Palladino before me. He wanted to make sure that he got someone who was as good as Pino. He didn't want anyone that was worse. So, and obviously from the piano player's point of view, he's playing bass stuff in the left hand as well. He wanted to make sure that we didn't clash and we were on the same page. So I'm to this day, I'm the only person that's had to do an official audition to get the Jools Holland gig, So that was back in 91. So I pretty much went there on the spot, almost. It took him like 5 minutes to...
Yeah.
And it was with your friend's recommendation, who you said was already in the band. If you walked in like a stranger, you may not have gotten the gig, too.
Yeah.
He maybe trusted you.
If I'd been like a number of people that had just maybe heard about it on the grapevine, or maybe if they'd have put an advert in the newspaper. So I think getting the recommendation in the first place was a big help. But Jools still, he wanted to hear me. He wanted to see exactly what I could do. So that was back in 91. And then the gigs were very modest at the time. There were small venues, very, very small venues. And, nothing that prestigious, really, like a lot of college gigs, university things. And then the weirdest thing happened that shocked everybody was the following year in 1992, Jools got asked to present this TV later. And it then became later with Jools Holland, this live music TV show, which is still going to this day. And then most of the band come on the TV show, they're self-contained. They've got all the musicians they need. Yeah. But when the TV when it first started, some of the artists would come over from all over the world, and they couldn't bring their band with them, or they couldn't bring any backing.
Yeah, so you would be Jools' band was the band, that house band, sort of.
But not even the band. It was more like individuals. It was more we got called on an individual basis. And for me, it was great because more often than not, people wanted a bass player because you've already got Jools playing the piano. So I nearly always got the call. Someone always needed a bass player. So I started to get these phone calls saying, Eric Clapton's going to be on the show. Are you available to play with Eric? We've got BB King, we've got Jeff Beck.
Wow.
Are you free? Are you okay to do that? I'm thinking
Jeff Beck is beckoning. Yeah, that's awesome.
When
you are, it sounds like a redundant question here, but it's important to me. So when you're on stage doing this, where you're talking about right now, this is all not reading, right? This is all improv, right? This is all by ear. Is that right?
It depends, and that's a very good question. Because here's the thing with the Jools gig, right? So there's only really me in the horn section that can read music, or we can sight read music. Mm-hmm. So Jools does read to some extent, but he's not really a reader. Jools is much more about playing by ear. Mm-hmm. And our drummer, Jules' brother, plays organ with us, and our guitarists, they are non-readers, complete non-readers. Okay, so what happens is, I play by ear like a lot. So I have a problem with it. But the thing is, especially on the TV show, a lot of the people that we play for, the bass parts, unless if it's a blues or an R&B thing, it's not so much. But when you're playing with people like Al Jarreau and Shaka Khan and George Benson, and you're playing quite complex stuff, and also you're playing songs where the bass is quite specific. Mm-hmm. If you're playing things like with Shaka Khan, Ain't Nobody, I'm Every Woman, all this stuff, the bass parts are probably more crucial than anything else there.
Right. That can't be off. It can't be a different placement of the notes. It needs to be specific.
Because I'm not touring with Shaka Khan. I'm not touring with George Benson. But we've got this one opportunity to play an iconic track, and it's for a one-off show. So that needs to be as accurate, as authentic.
Yeah, it's got to sound like the original.
You've not been playing. You've not been playing this constantly for months and years.
Well, songs that people know. It has to sound.
Yeah, it's got to be correct.
Pretty accurate.
Because they're hearing it, a one-off version of it, and they want almost like a jukebox version. They don't want me, Dave, playing my interpretation of what it should be and showing off. That's not what it is. So
that's a very interesting interpretation. Yeah. Okay.
Because if I was fortunate enough to be in Shaka Khan's band, then you'd probably learn the original, and then I doubt very much whether I would do the same thing later on. You'd elaborate. But if you're just doing a one-off TV show, my thought is, as accurate as possible, as close to the original recording, make it accurate, authentic and iconic. So what I would do, and I still do this today, I meticulously transcribe every bass line that I've ever played on Jools' TV show. And I've literally got thousands of handwritten transcriptions of every artist that I've ever played with, whether it's Paul McCartney or Amy Winehouse, Adele, So, because for me, that's a good starting point. If I get the bass line transcribed note for note off the original, then I know that I can't go wrong with the artist, because if I then turn up with the transcription and I play it, and more often than not, they won't say anything. But it's no news is good news.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because if they don't say anything, that means
it went great.
But occasionally, the artist will say, look, Dave, you don't have to play exactly what's on the record. You can free it up a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm fine with doing it, no problem. But if I started off from that angle, if I just kind of play anything thinking, this is close enough. This is in the ballpark. And then I get on that TV show and I start to do that. And somebody comes over and says, Dave, that's not what's on the record. That's not the original bass part. Then I'm. I was going to use I'm compromised. I was going to use a swear word then.
You can swear.
But because
we mark explicit on this. Yeah, you can say whatever you want here.
But I would be in big trouble there because if I then haven't learned it properly and I haven't transcribed it and I'm just kind of this is close, and they're not happy, then that's a problem, So whatever happens, I always start with the transcription. It's just what I do.
Or at least have it there. In case they say you can go up, so you can reference.
So you have both options. Both options are there, and you're confident in both. That's the best way.
That's right. So and for me, I just love doing transcriptions. I find them fascinating. I've got folders at home. I've got a Jacko folder. I've got an Anthony Jackson folder. And I just love doing transcriptions because it's great for your ears. Yeah, it's great for your writing and your musical knowledge and inspiration. So I do it anyway because I just enjoy it. And I always say with transcriptions, the hard work is its own reward. There's nothing bad about doing it. Doing transcriptions, you're only ever going to learn from them. They're only ever going to be beneficial if you can do them, if you have skill. Now, you mentioned it briefly. What happens next? So here's the thing: when we do Jools a TV show, there's often little or no rehearsal time. It's very, very super last minute, that show. So if I play on that show, the call I get is just a couple of hours before the broadcast, maybe 2 or 3 hours and stuff, and then you have a quick couple of run-throughs, and that's it. And then the next thing, you're playing it. Now, depending on how complex the thing that I'm playing, I've definitely used charts on Jools' show. If I felt that there wasn't enough time to really nail the part and to really feel comfortable with it, I'll have a chart somewhere, and discreetly, I'll try not to, it'll be off to the side or something. Or sometimes I'll put it on a monitor. I'll put it on the wedge monitors.
Or on your arm.
But other times, inside of my glasses.
Yeah.
Chords in it. But then if it's not too difficult, I'll still have I've still done the transcription. I always do them. But then if it's not too difficult, I'll not use it. I'll just put it to one side and just remember it. It really depends on the complexity of the bass line or the song, and how much time we've got to rehearse it. Like I said, I'd rather not take a chance if it's really complex and I feel as though I haven't been given enough time to do it. I mean, a good example of this is when we played. We did later Jools once, and the guest was Smokey Robinson, and it was going to be me, Jools, the guitarist, and the drummer from Jools' band, and the guitarist couldn't make it. So we needed to find a guitar player. Jools said to me, he said, who are we going to get? He said, we've got to play with Smokey Robinson. We need to get a guitar player. And he's asking me for recommendations. And I knew lots of players. If they're listening to this, they're probably going to kill me that I didn't recommend them now. But I just thought to myself, if I get this wrong, if I kind of miss something, and there's a personality thing, clash or whatever. So I said to Jools, listen, man, you choose someone. I'd feel happier. It's your TV show. You choose them, And Jools came back and he said, oh, man, he said, this has been tough. He said, I've been really struggling to find a good guitarist. I said, well, please tell me you've got someone to play with Smokey Robinson. He said, yeah, I've got someone. But he said, I'm not sure. I said, Jesus, who did you get? He said, Eric Clapton. He said, I hope that's okay.
Wow. Eric Clapton.
And did that go well? Was that a good show?
Yeah. So here's the weird thing that happened there. And this is going on to the preparation, right? So when we got to the studio at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, bearing in mind the show gets recorded around 8 o'clock. When we got there, we were all at X there, and we'd worked with him before, so it was nice to see him again. And he asked me if I'd be okay with sitting down next to him. He didn't want to play standing up. I sat with him. I'm playing bass guitar. And we were told that we weren't going to get to rehearse with Smokey Robinson because his flight into London had come in late. He wanted to have a snooze in his hotel. So the first time that we were going to see him was when Jools announces him on the TV floor, live TV. And that's the first time that we were going to see him, So we kind of ran through the song on our own. But Eric's, the whole time he's looking to me kind of going, this is crazy. This is insane. He said, I can't believe we're not going to rehearse with the guy.
This is one run through. Yeah.
We've got to play this song with him. I've got to do a solo in it. And we're not even going to rehearse with the guy. And I just turned around to Eric and I said, listen, this is what happens. This is how it is,
Yeah. You should have said, it is, but come on, you're Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
You can get through this.
So that was that, and so sure enough, he came onto the TV floor, we started to play, we did the song with him, and at the end of it, Smokey came over to me and Eric, and he gave us both a big hug, and he said, man, that was so beautiful, guys. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. And then he walked off, and that was it.
Wow.
That's it. Yeah. That's a good confirmation.
Like I said, Yeah, well, it's very. Sometimes it is that it's not like really that slick. More often than not, it's not super slick and super rehearsed and carefully planned. It's kind of quite sort of, I don't know what the word is, a little bit haphazard.
Which is similar to your audition. This is some real life lessons here. You were relaxed for your audition. Those who go for job interviews, the more you can walk it off, take it light, be relaxed, be yourself, you're going to succeed. It's the nervous person who trips and just doesn't make it work, And so, it's about it going smooth. Yeah.
I think if your audition was with Eric Clapton and Smokey Robinson the first time, you might have been.
Yeah. Maybe you would have. Maybe you would have had some nerves. Right? Yeah.
But now you're.
Well, I think with Jools, because Jools is a very laid back guy, and Jools is all about kind of jamming it out and kind of. One of the main reasons why Jools, I think, has kept me in the band for so long, because I'm all about the detail.
Yeah.
So when we do stuff, he knows that I'm going to be super accurate with learning all the bass parts, and that frees him up to be a little bit more open to interpretation what he does. Whereas if I was playing the bass the same way, if I was just a very loose kind of player, doing my own thing, then the whole thing becomes quite nebulous. So Jools knows that I'm a stickler for detail, and this helps him as well, because not only am I playing the bass parts super accurate, but I can be super accurate with telling him chords. If there's a chord sequence he's sure about, I can be very specific and say to him. So I'm kind of like this weird shadow MD, but it doesn't exist, like a ghost. I just little bits of relevant information. But
one thing I didn't realize, now, are all the shows live later with Jools Holland? Because you mentioned it was live, that Smokey Robinson was live, you said.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, the show's changed over the years. It's changed over the years because it always, at one point it was just pre-recorded. Okay. And then it was played at a later date. And then, and I don't know if you're familiar with Jools's, we've got an annual New Year's Eve TV show called Jools Holland. Hootenanny.
Yeah.
Hootenanny.
Yeah.
Hootenanny.
Yeah.
We don't use that word often in the U.S.
No, we don't.
No, that's not a common word in the UK either. Is it?
I don't know what I think the word hootenanny is like I think it's another word for a party.
Okay,
really, traditionally, I think it means a get together, a party.
Yeah.
Interestingly, that's the regular later with Jools started in '92, and the New Year's Eve hootenanny show began in '90. So that's been going like a long time as well, that's every New Year's Eve. Now, the hootenanny is definitely pre-recorded because there's just no way that everyone could do that show live on New Year's Eve, because it would be too costly. It would cost the BBC a fortune. One year we did the show and we were playing with Paul McCartney and Kylie Minogue and all these people. And there's no way that those guys are going to give up their own personal New Year's Eve show.
That's right.
So it's always, that's what we recorded. Now, what happened is we would record it a couple of weeks before New Year. So like around about the 14th of December. So at least we're close.
Yeah.
We're close to New Year.
Yeah.
And then, but obviously on that 14th of December, we have to be behaving like it is New Year's Eve. We have to do that. And then it would get broadcast, and for years it was. And then people started to discover that it was pre-recorded, and more and more people started to complain about this. They were kind of miffed that it was. They felt as though they were being duped.
Yeah.
And then the real giveaway came on the Millennium Night, and we'd already recorded Jools Holland's Hootenanny, but we then got the gig to play in the Millennium Dome here in London, in southeast London, with a house band for the Queen and the Prime Minister, and we were playing with all these people.
Yeah.
But that was live. That was live.
Yeah.
So what's happening is people are at home.
Two places at once.
Kind of going, those guys are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
The two places at once.
Right. Yeah. But as a music lover, that would suck because, I wanted to see and hear that. And I wanted to see and hear. Yeah, you wanted to see and hear both. That's what you're saying. They were going back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? To this day, I still haven't seen the Millennium Dome gig. I've never actually seen. I only ever seen it. But anyway, that was when the cat was out of the bag, and people went nuts. People were so angry that the Hootenanny was pre-recorded. I mean, really terrible backlash to it. And I'm thinking, it's like there's a lot of Christmas shows that are recorded months before, and they're pretending it's Christmas Day.
Yeah. In the US, we say let it go. Let it go, Dave. Let it go. That's what we say. Let it go, man. Let it go.
But the thing is, in the U.S., when you have a New Year's show that's live, they aren't even sometimes they aren't even playing their instruments. They're playing to a track. So you guys
destroying the artistic credibility of.
They should have been glad that you guys are true musicians and.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thing, right? So when we do that New Year's Eve show, although it's a pre-recorded show, we're playing the show as live. So we're recording it in real time.
Yeah. Right.
Also, there's other bands there, but we're the house band on that New Year's Eve show. So we're doing the lion's share of the work. It's like this conveyor belt of people we're playing with. So anyways, what happened is, because of this backlash, with the regular TV show, later Jools Holland, they wanted to the BBC, I guess it was like a peace offering to the British public. So what they would do is they then started to record the show on a Tuesday. So what they would do is let me get this right. Okay. They do a pre-recorded version on the Tuesday night. And that pre-recorded show was going to be broadcast on the Friday of the same week. So it was like an hour's pre-record.
Yeah.
So this was on the Tuesday. Now, when that hour's pre-record was done, we'd have a breather, and then we would do half an hour live that night. On the Tuesday.
Okay.
Wow.
So the idea is that we've done the pre-record for the Friday. That's the full show. But we're giving you a half an hour live as a taster.
Yeah.
And I think it was the BBC's effort to show the British public that, look, we can do this live. This is possible. We're giving you a half an hour live of what you're going to get to see on the Friday night kind of thing. So it was, there was a bit of give and take there. It was to placate the audience that were complaining that it's never live,
I think it's a unique show. Now, when we first moved to this house, I had a channel. I think it was called AXS. It was a music channel, and they play later with Jools Holland. But then my cable company got rid of it, and I have MTV Live or something, and they don't play it. So I was able to see it, and you can go on YouTube too. But I think it's unique if you still do it. You would have 4 or 5 bands on the same stage, set up individually.
Yeah. That's right. And then Jools just walks around the room and introduces them. Now, I have to say that COVID really messed things up. Of course, because, for all of us. So for 2020. It was completely gone. Now, when 2021 came back in, they couldn't do what they would film it. So they did it at Jools' studio, round the corner from me. But Jools' studio is super tiny, so obviously no live audience because it's big enough and it's COVID restrictions.
Yeah.
2, it was just Jools and 1 artist, and there was a big grand piano between them, so there was the distancing. There was a skeleton film crew and the producer there. So we couldn't be there. You couldn't have any other musicians at all. It was very, very strict. And then what would happen is Jools would interview this 1 artist, and then they would show stock footage from previous episodes to fill out the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that stayed for a long time because the BBC was so paranoid. They were so paranoid about going back to a TV studio. And so that took ages for that to happen, So the pandemic really did a number on the show. It was Yeah. And then when we came back and we did the Hootenanny, we couldn't have any of the bands. It was just us. It was just the Jools Holland band playing for all the artists, but there was no audience. There was nobody there.
Yeah.
Only person in the audience. There was the director. There was one cameraman and the cleaner. so we'd be playing like with Tom Jones, and Imelda May and Jeff Beck, and we'd be playing these fantastic songs. And at the end of it, all you'd hear was,
yeah, one.
Yeah. You hear 2 or 3 people clapping, and I'm thinking,
so you
God,
need our
so
sound, you need like a sound device like we have. Yeah.
Thank you.
Or like they do.
When they broadcast it, of course, they had to put on.
Oh, okay.
They had to put on the. But it was just us in the room when we recorded it. It was just like 3 people.
Yeah.
It really brings down the feel. Yeah.
Really and this is what happens behind the scenes in showbiz, folks. This is the stuff that people never get to see.
So I wanted to talk about Joss Stone, if we could. Matt and I saw Joss in September in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and she doesn't do, like, if she did a tour, like, she's been around like 20 some years. I know she started out when she was like 16.
Yeah,
but I don't remember her ever coming around to my area unless it was like New York or something. So when I saw she was playing at this place that I go to all the time, Wind Creek, it's a casino.
Okay.
I had to go see her.
Yeah.
So how did you two you're good friends with her, right? Correct?
Well, the thing is, to be honest with you, a lot of my associations with artists are through Jools. That's how I initially meet a lot of people because the nature of that gig, whether you're doing Jools' radio show, the TV show, live gigs, recording sessions, you get to meet like a lot of people. You get to meet a volume of artists that you would never get to meet if you were just a regular freelance guy, So the majority of people that I know, I've met through Jools, but yeah, we've definitely, like I said, recorded together. She's done shows with this, the TV show. In fact, like I said, she's going to be doing this tour coming up. She's going to be doing some of the dates, not all of them, but some of them. And she is going to be doing our New Year's Eve TV show again. Okay. It's not the first time that she's actually done it before, But the thing is, when you play with these people, it's as much of how well you get on with them. That's just as important as how well you play with them. Because if you're going to be on tour with somebody, if you're going to be in a studio all day, in a green room somewhere drinking coffee for however many hours, you've got to be able to
have a
get on with people.
Regular conversations.
Yeah, and to be personable, and that's, I think that's a big part of what people don't understand about the industry. I know people who are great players, who are like phenomenal virtuoso players, but let's just say their personalities might leave, a little bit to be desired.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying they're terrible people, but I'm just saying that, sometimes social skills are a thing that you develop as well as musical one. Those social skills are important, and not everyone has them. Not everyone has great skills. So Joss and I we've always gone so well, and she's such a sweetheart. She's so down to earth. Whenever I've said to her, "Listen, we've got to have a picture taken. We've got to have our photograph taken." She's never been big time about it. She's always happily done it. And we've just always had. She is a delight to work with.
At her show, I really appreciated how we were to the right of center, looking, and just a few rows, so it's 10 feet. She comes down, and the spotlight's trying to follow her. She comes down, and she's just 10 feet in front of us, and there's people. I think we're all standing at that point, but she just starts dancing with this guy, and they're dancing, and the spotlight's there, and again, it's just right in front of us, and she just genuinely.
And then she came down the middle aisle and was singing with
Right, singing with everybody, but I just saw right there, she genuinely smiled and had a good time, probably gave him a quick hug and moved on. It was like, wow, okay, that's so real. That was really impressive.
Yeah.
That does sound like it. But you know what? The thing that always makes me smile about, well, there's a lot of things that make me smile about Joss, but the one thing that always used to tickle me when, I should say, amuse me with Joss, is that when I first started to work with her, and she'd come into and she's nearly always barefoot. She likes to be barefoot most of the time, whenever she can. And she just and she wears and she's very kind of summery. You know, she just looks though every day is summer.
Free flowing. She's a free flowing woman.
She's
flowery, lightweight dresses and. Yeah, I've seen her on Instagram on her videos.
Right.
She's always seems happy.
She emanates like sunshine.
Yeah.
And just always imagine her skipping through fields of daisies and things like that.
Yeah.
It's great. But like a typical English rose, but quite demure as well, you know, very well behaved and very, very, very demure, you know. And then she starts to sing.
Yeah.
And then she kind of goes into a whole different world, you know. And then she starts to do like an Aretha Franklin type song.
Yeah.
And she becomes
like, where does
somebody
that come
else,
from?
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
What? she looks as though she's going to be singing like a folk song or some madrigal or a hymn. Yeah. Something like that, you know. You don't think she's going to like sing this gritty R&B blues thing, and I'm thinking, wow, where does that come from?
Right.
You know, so that she always surprised me like that. Wow, that's kind of
your tour coming up. Is that just the UK or not?
Yeah, it is. I mean, to be honest with you, we have done world tours with Jools. We have traveled all over the world way back in the day, but I think the problem is it's such a large band. You know, there's like 20 of us or something like that. And it's just so costly to do that. I think, you know, the management got to the point where they were looking at the figures and thinking, you know, this isn't like, you know,
this isn't the best. At all, maybe.
Exactly that. So we did do some of those big international tours, but most of the time it's, so in the summer we do some European dates, but this tour coming up, which starts in a few days' time. In fact, Jools phoned me a couple of hours ago just to make sure that which songs that we're doing, you know. And I was already ahead of the game, man. I'd already done my homework. It's already been done.
All taken care of.
Yeah, it's you're with professionals now. It's okay. No, but I'm very conscientious like that. So this tour coming up. It's the beginning of November. It goes till Christmas, and it's all UK. They're all UK dates. Now, what's particularly special about this tour coming up is we've got Pauline Black, who is one of the guest singers, as well as Joss Stone. And Pauline Black is from a two-tone ska revival band called The Selector, which is a band that I listened to as a kid. You know, I was a big fan of that band and of Pauline. You know, and it's like a lot of the people I get to play with, they're often musicians, artists, and bands that I was a massive fan of when I was a kid. And here I am playing with these people. You know, it's like, how did that happen?
That's a dream come true. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, one other person is Rod Stewart.
Rod the Bod?
Yeah, Rod the Bod, they used to call him. And
Sir Rod.
But you're Jools, and I don't know how many people from the band are on. He has a new album coming out. Is that correct? Or are you only on a couple of songs? Or?
No. It's so what the album is. It's so we recorded it last year, and it's a collaborative album with Jools and Rod Stewart. So the Jools Holland band, we are the band on the album. We're playing every track.
Okay.
And so Rod is the singer on it. So it's it's a Jools Holland band, Rod Stewart album. You know, so I mean, I don't know what it's going to be called or the title or who's going to get top billing.
I heard it's a swing album. I heard it's swing music.
Yeah.
Swing.
Yeah, so here's what happened. So
I don't know how much you can tell us. But...
Yeah. No, it's fine, fine. So I mean, Jools himself personally, he likes, his favorite music is blues, swing, boogie woogie.
Yeah,
that's his bag. Now, I mean, I like that stuff. I'm probably more of a mainstream jazz fan than anything else, but I love kind of funk and stuff. Well, every kind of thing. I mean, my two favorite bands. A Weather Report and Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea of where
mine are Cheap Trick, right? Cheap Trick and Frank Sinatra.
That's a wide range.
So, yeah. No, I like all kinds.
I mean, I always said that if I could have been in two other bands, like Weather Report or Earth, Wind and Fire, I probably wouldn't have been good. But who knows? Maybe not. But anyway, I love it. So, but when we play. The majority of what we play is kind of more swingy, jazzy stuff, But when we do the TV show, we might be playing like a hard rock thing, like a funk thing, a ska, pop scene, whatever. That's a different thing. But on Jools's gig, generally it's more kind of jazzy, big band, swing stuff, And obviously Rod was aware of this. Now, Rod Stewart has done either one or more albums in that genre, like the Great American Songbook.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
So when he approached Jools to do this one with us, I mean, I was a bit surprised. I thought, well, you've kind of already done that, but there's slight differences. Okay, so what happened when Rod did the previous album or albums? He told me personally that he wasn't always present when the music was being recorded.
Oh, okay.
A lot of it was done separately.
Oh.
And then he came along at a different point to put it on there.
Yeah.
And this was something that he said he wasn't happy about. It didn't feel quite.
Yeah, you didn't get a different feeling if you're not
a part of
there
it,
with the band. Yeah. Like you're not phoning it in. I mean, Rod wouldn't phone it in, but just.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure we've all done remote recordings, and sometimes you just have to. But it's like when we record with Jools anyway with the band, if we do our own albums, Jools wants us all to be there playing together. He doesn't want the rhythm section to put it down and then somebody else to come in and somebody else. He wants us.
So it's all recorded in live together.
Yeah. The only difference is that our guitarist who has to have his guitar amp mic'd, he'll go in a separate room. Our drummer will have screens around him. But Jools wants to see most of us. He wants to physically look at us when we're recording. So we've always done it like that. That's important in the Jools. And I think Rod realized that that's what he wanted to do this time round. He wanted to be there with us all at the same time, so it was a lot more organic. And also, here's the other thing. So when he's done these albums before, the musicians that he used, the band, whoever it was, whether they were session guys or whatever, it was very kind of ultra slick. It was like really kind of squeaky clean, I guess, almost. I'm not saying it was bad, but it was very, very sort of slick, And Rod
maybe overproduced or.
Exactly that. And he wanted it with a bit more loose, a bit more kind of, I don't know, edgy, something like that. So the thing with Jools' band, that's exactly what we can do, So I think what we're doing is we're playing sort of big band swing stuff, but with a bit more of an R&B sensibility about it,
Yeah.
It's still swing stuff, but it doesn't sound like super polished and kind of a bit sort of sterile, I guess, So that's why Rod wanted to do it, and that's why he's very happy about it. So the album was last year. It's coming out in February 2024.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah,
but
it sounds interesting.
Yeah, it should be great fun, So, but Rod is definitely going to do the New Year's Eve show with us because we've been trying to get him on that for the longest time. So he's definitely going to do the New Year's Eve TV show because obviously he's going to want to promote the new album. The real coup is I think he's going to join the tour for a couple of dates.
Yeah.
He's actually going to come and play with us live.
That's great.
I don't know which dates they are, but obviously some folks in the audience are going to get super lucky because they're just buying tickets to come and see the Jools Holland band.
Okay, so he's not going to be announced.
Well, I don't, because we don't even know when he's coming.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be, maybe a few days or a week's notice kind of thing. Most people will have bought their tickets already, So some people are going to get quite the coup, So
wow.
So and then what we're going to do is in between the tour dates, we're going to be doing some TV promotion work, and we'll do even more once the album comes out in February. So it'll be interesting to see where this takes us all, where this takes Rod Stewart, where it takes us, where it takes Jools, the whole thing. We might do some international tour. We might do a long weekend in Vegas. Who knows?
Yeah.
at the Sphere.
Yeah, at the Sphere. Yeah,
once U2 is out
once U2 gets it. What year would that be? 2035?
No, I don't. They announced more dates, but in the January and February, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be there.
I didn't even realize U2 are playing in Las Vegas.
Right. It's called the Sphere. Have you heard of that yet?
No.
Okay.
Look it up. Well, when you have time, but look up the Sphere, and there's video of this thing.
It's a venue, which is a giant dome.
It's the biggest Sphere, where they're going to have concerts and also like some films. Like it can project all the way around and on the outside, which is freaky.
Yeah. So
there's a train. There's a train that goes by, or a monorail. And the thing had, like, once in a while they'll project like a face on there, like two eyes, and he's looking down at the train. And there's a golf course there, and there's a video of a guy hitting the ball, and the thing's looking up. I don't know.
So you have to picture a giant dome, but with no structural pieces. Okay, it's just a consistent giant dome that they project on the outside, and when you're at the concert on the inside, they project on that. So it's like you're outside. It's. My sister just would have gone last weekend. I didn't talk to her. She went from Dallas for her birthday, so she would have gone just 2 days ago, and I didn't talk to her yet. But she just made it in there. It's brand new. Yeah.
Yeah, U2's playing there for a little while, and it costs $2.3 billion, this thing.
$2.3 billion.
I don't know who paid for it.
That's not the price of a ticket, is it?
No, it's a little less.
Tickets are $500.
Yeah.
To see U2.
Dave, you've given us so much of your time. I got another question here. You recorded the score for a movie, Me and Orson Welles. Is that true?
Yeah, it is.
How did it go?
Yeah, it was good. It was apparently, I think the stars of it was Zac Efron.
Yeah.
And there was a lady called Claire Danes. But the guy that played Orson Welles, who was amazing. He was like a younger Orson Welles. And I can't remember his name, forgive me, but he was so good. He looked so like a young Orson Welles. But yeah, what happened is we got called to play on the soundtrack to it. And I guess, I don't know if Jools knew the producer, or I'm not really sure the connection, but I guess the nature of the music, because obviously it's set is it in the 40s or the 30s maybe?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. But I guess they thought that we would be quite suitable to play, because, we do have to play music from every era in Jools' band. We have to play old school jazz stuff, old standards, American songbook, whatever. So initially we got called to play on the soundtrack, but then someone said, why don't we get you guys in the movie? Why don't you guys actually appear in it?
Oh, very cool.
And the thing is, I have to be honest, I've done a little bit of this before. I've been a musician that's played on a soundtrack, but also I've appeared in the movie as well.
Okay.
I've done this in so I knew that this was quite good fun, Now, they didn't want the whole band. They wanted like a small group. And the idea is that we're supposed to be playing in a New York club, like just in the background, just not a featured thing in the back. So it had to be a small group. But the only slightly awkward thing was there were some guys in the band, with the greatest of respect to them, weren't going to be able to be in this scene.
Yeah.
Because of the 1940s.
And they had like dreadlocks.
Yeah.
And kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously they didn't want to get rid of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it was me, the guitarist, Jools, the drummer. It may have been a couple of the horn players, but they had to pick the guys that looked as though they could have fitted in that.
That time
era.
period.
Yeah. Wow, that was a difficult decision to make. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So Jools had his hair slicked back, and they gave him a little pencil moustache.
I'm gonna have to watch this movie. I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun, And but obviously, me and the guitarist are completely shaved heads. Now, I don't know whether or not musicians back then used to do that. It was probably more likely they had hair around the sides,
saving every little bit you have. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Back then.
Yeah, so maybe us shaved head guys, maybe we weren't being authentic either, But but we did it anyway, and we were in like one scene where we're in this ballroom, and it was shot in. This scene was in Southeast London. There's a venue that hasn't changed since back then, and they often use it for film. So we played on the whole of the soundtrack, but we did the movie as well. So that was a lot of fun. I'm not even sure if I've seen the film yet. I don't know, but we've done that with Jools a few times. We've done soundtracks to movies, but that was the time that we actually appeared in the film. And of course, you have to wear all the right clothes. We had to go to the costumes, and even like the cufflinks.
Yeah, they wore layers. And...
Yeah, and the cummerbunds and the shirts, and every little thing was so meticulously worked out, because we couldn't be seen wearing anything that was vaguely out of place or modern. I don't think there were too many musicians wearing earrings back then.
Yeah, that's excellent. We'll look for that movie. It's called Me and Orson Welles.
Yeah. So we won't keep you too much longer. We just have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
These are non-music. I have like 3 questions for you, because I know you probably, we've been talking all about music. You probably that's all you when you're interviewed, maybe that's what all the questions are about. So we like to learn maybe some. Yeah,
NPR has one of these little bits. It's called "Not My Job," but we're not going to do that to you.
So, Dave, if you weren't a musician, what other profession do you think you would be working in?
Okay, well, that's a really good question, because I've just spent the week with Sarah Karloff, daughter of horror icon Boris. I was interviewed
that we interviewed.
Yeah, that's right.
So Sarah Karloff is one of my dear friends, and the reason why we're friends is I'm a lifelong fan of horror monster movies. Started off when I was a little kid watching the Monsters on TV.
The Monsters.
I love the Monsters.
Yeah, so do I.
Monsters, yeah. Obviously, by the time I was watching them, this reruns, so this would have been early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And I just loved the characters. I didn't realize that they were parodying the movies that I hadn't seen. I hadn't watched the universe.
I get it.
Okay.
That's great.
So the monsters, they just captured my imagination. So when I started to watch the horror movies with Boris Karloff, Lugosi, Lon Chaney, all those kind of guys, I was obsessed with monsters. I mean, and I still am. It's still my hobby outside of music is anything to do with collecting memorabilia horror movies. So when I was a kid, I used to dress up as monsters all the time. I was painting my face green, sticking bolts on my neck.
Oh, man.
When I was really little, my ideal job was to be like Jack Pierce, who made up Boris Karloff as Frankenstein. I wanted to be a horror makeup guy. I was absolutely fascinated with how do they do these scars and the makeup and stuff. I was quite obsessed with them. But when I was a kid, I just couldn't begin to imagine that you could do that as a job. And my parents had no clue either, because they were factory workers. So they probably saw me with all this kind of grease paint, like making full scars. Thinking, what's wrong with this kid?
Yeah, what's going on?
What's wrong with him? But he was like Halloween every single day in my house. And ironically, my son now, Oscar, who's 6, I don't know if you can kind of see this, but my son Oscar, who's 6, he's he's monster crazy as well. So,
for our listeners who can't see that, we're seeing a studio
with stand up
cutouts, cardboard cutouts. Dracula, Frankenstein,
the Wolfman.
Yeah. That's excellent.
Candy Halloween.
Chucky.
This is all my stuff. Yeah,
I believe it. No.
So really, early on, I wanted to be horror makeup guy. And then I've always had a fascination with archaeology. Maybe that comes from watching the Mummy movies. These guys going into these ancient tombs and digging up stuff. I thought to myself, wow, I'd love to be like an archaeologist. And I've always had a fascination with the workings of the human mind. So I also kind of thought, maybe some kind of like a psychologist, psychoanalyst. That fascinated me as well. So I think those would have been. Oh, and of course, I love basketball. I'm a big basketball fan. So if I wasn't so short at 6'3", I would have liked to have been a pro basketball player.
I'm sure you would have been a great makeup artist with the desire to do it, the interest in it. And that is hilarious. That is a great story that you're watching the Munsters, which we grew up watching reruns of the Munsters here in the U.S., not realizing, this is actually comedy spoof. They're spoofing the scary the horror stories that you hadn't seen yet.
Exactly. And I meet Butch Patrick.
Yeah, we interviewed him last year.
Yeah.
I've met Butch a couple times.
I got to meet him at the Chiller Theatre convention in Parsippany, New Jersey.
When were you there?
I went to the last time I was there was pre-COVID, because I usually hang out with Sarah. So I was there.
Oh wow!
Yeah, you could have been there.
When was the last time? It might have been 2000.
I've been going there since '99.
Yeah, he goes every.
It's twice a year.
I've been there 3 times. 3 times.
Wow!
Could have seen him. Could have run into him.
I was there on Saturday.
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh, he's gonna get something. He's gonna.
No, I'll tell you what. No. Because the first time I went there,
Dave could have been wearing a mask.
It was before I met Sarah. But the first time I went to Chiller was in the mid 2000s, and I met this guy,
Lou Ferrigno.
There he is.
Yeah.
He hasn't been back in a while, but
yeah.
Well, Parsippany, New Jersey is 45, 50 minutes from me. That's
no way.
Yeah. That's why.
Hey, but even closer than that, right down the road here on Route 57, there's Ferrigno's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a weight. There's
no kidding.
It's a relative of Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah.
He had a weight. He sold weightlifting equipment.
Yeah.
But it's still, the building still says Ferrigno's on it.
Yeah, it's still been there for decades.
But I don't,
as long as we can remember.
Yeah.
I think it might be like a cousin or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, because I was a big kind of comics as a kid as well, and the Hulk was always my favorite. So I've got a big collection of Universal monster stuff, but I've also got a Hulk collection. So I love comics, and I used to love sketching when I was a kid. So that would have been the other thing.
If you ever go on a Chiller again, let me know, because like I said, I go to every show.
Yeah,
we'll hang out.
That's awesome. I did not know that.
I've been 3 times now. So I'd love to.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to go again.
This is might be a quick question. What is your absolute favorite food?
Ooh, that's nice. That's nice. I was talking to my wife Lucy about this. What could I not live without? I've got to be honest. I love a fillet steak. I love.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you call it filet mignon? I think, or something like that.
That's my wife's favorite.
Mignon, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that, but I'm very, very partial to cheese. I actually really love.
No way.
Here it is.
I adore the stuff.
Ask him about cheese. That's what it says right there.
Oh, no way. How funny.
We just did an interview with a comedian, Dave Hill, and we talked about all kinds of cheese, and I said, we need to ask this Dave.
And I said to him, have you gone to Sunday school?
Did you see
Did you know about cheeses?
Did you know we talked about cheese with the other guy?
No, I did not.
Oh, that's weird.
I honestly didn't know that.
Okay, so Swiss with Ritz crackers is my favorite. Okay. What's your favorite cheese?
I've got to be honest. I love trying a lot of stuff, but for me, my two big guns. I love extra mature cheddar. I mean, I just do. I just love extra mature cheddar. But I love Camembert. I'm a big Camembert fan.
I've heard of Camembert. When you say extra mature, is this is the sharp, extra sharp, or is maturity something different?
Yeah, well, there's extra mature. I think there's super extra. I think there's.
Well, I think it's sharp.
So definitely.
That's what I was. In the U.S., we call it sharp,
extra sharp. Maybe it's the same thing. I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Oh yes. So over here it's mild. Which forget about that because it might as well be butter.
Yeah.
But then there's mature and there's extra mature.
Yeah, that's got to be the same.
It's
me
it's
too.
Really kind of tangy. It's like got a little bit of like a crunch.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a.
It's always harder.
I always want to make my eyes water a little tiny bit.
Yeah. Me too.
That's interesting.
But you know what? There is. On the flip side to that, the one cheese I cannot eat is goat cheese.
Me too.
Exactly
I said that with the other Dave.
Yeah.
Goat cheese.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I had a turkey burger and they put goat cheese. I wanted to vomit. Seriously.
No, well, that would be game over for me, man. I would
me
not
too.
be able to.
Yeah.
My roommate in college says they've got cow cheese. And they've got goat cheese. He said, why did they not make rat cheese? He said, I would taste the rat cheese.
Yeah.
I mean, he just skip over the cat and dog, just go right to the rat.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing.
Honestly, I just can't do it. I literally can't.
Yeah, I can't.
Eat it,
My mom loves goat cheese. I don't know why, but she.
So we have one last question.
And this is not music. Oh, this could be music related, depending on the answer. Yeah.
Okay, Dave, you just won $5 million. What are you using the money for?
I think 5 million is still life changing. I know, inflation and everything, but still 5 million still could be life changing.
Yeah, nowadays it's not really that much.
Do you know what? I mean, this is probably going to sound really, really shallow, but I'd probably want to buy a bigger house, and I'd probably move out of London as well. I'd probably move out to the country and have a much bigger house because I became a father very late to the game, so I'm 50. I'll be 60 in January.
Okay.
My son was like 6.
Yeah.
So I'm very late to the father thing, and we live in London. We live in Southeast London. We live in an apartment. It's actually a house that's split into 2 apartments. And me, my wife, and my son live upstairs, and my wife's mother lives downstairs. It's quite a cool setup.
Yeah.
But more space would be nice, especially for the basses. Never mind the family. It's more about where I'm going to put the basses.
It's more about that bass, is what he's saying.
You probably have you probably have a room
about that
for your basses,
about that bass.
Right? Well, they're in every room.
Oh, okay.
They're all over the place.
Wow.
But yeah, I'd probably, and also, London is very chaotic. It's much busier than when I first moved here in the 80s. It's really super, super hectic, and especially, for Oscar, I'd love for him to have a bit more of a, I want him to have a cosmopolitan life, but I don't know. I think I'd also enjoy being out in the country somewhere.
Yeah.
So I probably would, want to buy a slightly bigger, and also, my wife, she's like 33 years younger than I am. She's quite considerably younger. So there is a potential that we might have more kids.
Yeah.
Assuming my heart holds out. Is
okay.
There's a man in love. There's a man in love, Rob. Yeah.
And if we did do that, I think I'd want us to be more in the countryside, So I'd probably do that. Do you know what? That's a good point. I mean, I'd probably want to do more traveling because the thing is, I used to do a lot of things when I was kind of younger, the cruise ships, all that kind of stuff. And then, I stopped going on holidays because of work. I always ended up putting work first. And then I haven't been on holiday in years. But then again, people will say to me, well, yeah, but your job is like a holiday. Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes and no.
it's not like working down a mine shaft.
Yeah.
So it's a holiday in comparison to that.
But
I
it's
think
not
travel's
like
really
you're
important.
on a beach with the band playing in the
Well,
sunshine,
I
drinking margaritas.
I was taking
know.
a vacation in Colorado. In the U.S., we call it vacation, what you call holiday. So I was
Yeah,
taking a vacation in Colorado, and I was talking with someone. We were out in the beautiful canyons and everything, and she said, "Yeah, coming from Ohio to Colorado, it's nice, but you think you're going to be just here, enjoy it and everything. But guess what? You're the one working. You're the one working. You're the one
yeah,
serving the vacationers, the people who are on holiday.
yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
you're not just having a holiday here. You're serving the people who are coming here for their holiday. It's different. It's different. You're working, and I think it's similar to what you're saying. You're working. And you're not just chilling out listening to great music. You're up there making the
Yes,
music,
Yeah.
and
that's
it's not
true.
the same. Yeah, it's
But you know
fascinating.
what? I think also I really want to invest in my son Oscar because he's a great little kid. He's such a sweetheart, and he plays instruments as well. He plays
Hmm.
he's studying piano. He's been having piano
Yeah.
lessons, and
Great.
he's pretty good. Let's put it this way: my 6-year-old plays the piano better than I do.
Yeah.
Let's just leave that one there.
Yeah.
He can read music. He can play
Ah.
chords and whatever. But
Wow.
here's the weird thing, right? So I've got all of these basses, all of these guitars, double basses, trombones, tubas. He's left-handed. The kid is,
Oh.
I don't know, there's nobody else in any of the families has ever been that part. But this
it's
could mean,
that's
this could
funny.
mean that my bases are safe.
Yeah.
It could
Oh
mean
yeah.
that he's not going to want to go anywhere near them,
Hmm.
Yeah.
unless he becomes ambidextrous. But
Right. Right.
I think because he's so young, I think I'd like to probably, education's really important for me because I had a lousy education. And it wasn't so much the school, it was like my fault as well. I didn't study, I didn't understand the relevance of it. I didn't think it was
Hmm.
important.
Hmm.
How is studying French going to get me a job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Because this was back
understandable.
in the
It's
70s.
understandable. Sure. Yeah.
And so I have no qualifications at all. And as my deepest regret has always been that not having a great education. I kind of think, now I think I'd like to have gone to college and university and all this kind of stuff. So I think with that kind of money, I'd probably want to invest in Oscar and just make sure that he
Yeah.
got best education and also that he's aware of the value of it. Because my parents were very hands off and they just let me get on with it,
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
which in
Us
some
too.
ways is kind of
Yeah.
okay.
No, we're from that generation.
But
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, but sometimes you can be too hands off, and it can go the opposite way. And I
Yeah.
didn't get enough input and enough advice. That's why I made so many bad choices. So education for me is really important. So I probably definitely want to invest. I'm not saying necessarily sending him to private school or anything like that, but make sure that he studies were important. Education is important, and
Yeah.
travel. There's no better education than that as well. Traveling,
Hmm.
visiting
Right.
different countries, cultures, societies, that kind of stuff. I mean, that can change. That can change someone's
My
life.
my son just went to Germany. He's 20 years old.
First time traveling overseas alone.
Yeah.
Hmm.
His friend Ben is in the army in Germany.
Hmm.
So he flew over there by himself and for like, I don't know, 10 days. Paid for it
Yeah.
himself.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he learned a
Which
lot.
is a plus
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's expensive
Well,
to
for
travel.
me, I mean, and it is important. I mean, for me, the cruise ships were a game changer for me because
Mhm.
I had never traveled to those places, and I probably would never again. And
Yeah.
I did this in my late teens, early 20s.
Wow.
So then, all over the world, I was eating food that I would never have
Hmm.
encountered.
Yeah.
All sorts of things. I'd never had avocado before. I'd
Hmm.
never had a whiskey sour. What's all this stuff, man? What's Thousand Island dressing? I've never.
Yeah.
I love Thousand Island dressing.
Yeah, because my family was very, very working class
Yeah.
family. My
Ours
whole
too.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, know exactly what you mean.
So just me being fortunate enough to play an instrument that got me on that cruise ship, that took me all around the globe several times, man. My brain just exploded, with the culture and lifestyle and everything. It's really important, So yeah, I'd want to do a lot more traveling, just not necessarily with a band.
Yeah.
Just be with the family. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Great answer, Dave.
I wanted to ask you before we go, because we like to use a little bit of music, but I was wondering if you had any solo stuff of your own that we could incorporate, like 30 seconds, 45. I don't know if you had, because I know we can't use, you playing bass with Robert Plant or something, but is there any solo work that you've done that we could find?
Well, I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, I'd have to. I thought for a second there you were going to ask me to play something right now. I'm thinking,
no, unless you want.
No.
I don't want to keep you all night.
For me, is I have to say that I've never wanted to do any kind of like soloistic thing. I've never written my own things. And, people often say to me on social media, Dave, you put these great photographs up there and they're playing with this person, that person. What about some actual music? But I've never been into just sitting there on my own playing some stuff, that kind of attention seeking, lots of people do it, when I left school and I told you I was playing trombone and bass and whatever, and I didn't think that I could get a job for that. I didn't think that was possible. So I hadn't got a clue when I left school. It was my trombone teacher that got me gigs, because he was a fixer in that part of the country. So he had shows. And I remember thinking, you are going to give me money to play music and to play these instruments. It was just, it was incomprehensible. Yeah. I didn't think you could do that, So I think the way I've always been as a musician, I've always, I've never wanted to be like a front man, write my own stuff. I've always been really, really happy to be part of a band in the background, doing my thing. So that's the reason why I've never written anything. I've never tried to form my own band. I really enjoy just being part of it, and even if it is standing in the shadow, I really don't mind that. I'm kind of all right with it, So I mean, my wife Lucy, she sings. She's a professional jazz singer, and we do gigs together. And she writes some stuff occasionally, but more often than not, we're still playing like jazz standards. We're still playing traditional jazz music. So I've never really been drawn into the spotlight, so to speak.
Okay.
So apart from the time when I got called to play with Paul Simon on Jools' show, that was the one time that shocked me, because Paul Simon came on and I was a big Paul Simon fan, and I'm just thinking, I'm going to be at the back playing a very pedestrian bass line. No one's going to see me. I'm fine with that. I'm playing with Paul Simon. It's all good. And I heard the track, and it was called Wristband from an album he had. I think it was 2000, and it's with some bass features. Yeah, it's literally the whole song is just voice and double bass. And I'm listening to the thing and blimey, I've never had like a feature on Jools' show before. So we got to the BBC and I met Paul, and obviously I'm quite tall and Paul isn't, and I was gonna take my bass right to the back, and the BBC said, no, you've got to stand at the front. It's you and Paul. It's your feature. Wow. So and we did it, and it was like, and the weird thing is this bass line. It really is the whole song. It's the bass line and it's Paul's vocal. That's what Wristband is. But it was an E flat, okay, and this is on double bass, and I'm kind of thinking straight away you had to hit a low E flat high one, and it's quite a way up on the double. I'm thinking, blimey, And I was working out the fingering for this riff, and it just wasn't sitting under my hands at all, And I was like, and I tried all these different fingerings, thinking, well, listen, I've got to get this right because this is a big feature. I'm playing with Paul Simon. I'm right at the front of the stage. This has got to be perfect, And eventually, the fingering I came up with, I still wasn't thrilled with it, but it was the lesser of two evils. it was the best that I could do on the double bass, right? Anyway, we did the song. It's out there on YouTube. And he was great. Paul was wonderful. He chatted to me. His father was a double bass player. He was interested in my double bass. We got on great. We had a great time. And I've been listening to him my whole life. So it was a real honor for me. Anyway, sometime after that, I discovered that the bass player that was on that original track, his name's Carlos Henriquez. He's like an American jazz double bass player. He saw a post. I think I posted me playing the song with Paul Simon, and he commented on it. And then we started to kind of chat privately. And he sort of said, as a matter of interest, what key were you playing it in? And I said, yeah, man, it's funny you should say that. Because like I said, he was the original bass player on the album. And I said, man, it's an E flat. I said, who thought of that? He said, it wasn't in E flat. He said, we recorded it in D, and the tapes was sped up.
Tape problem.
Because Paul wanted it to be a bit quicker.
Oh, okay.
So he put it in E flat, And then I went, you're kidding me. And then I literally got the bass out, and I started to play it in D, and I'm thinking, this is so easy.
Wow, that's so easy.
Wow.
You've got the open D, the high D, and I'm thinking, God. And because they vary speed it, put it into E flat, and I was wondering, this is really uncomfortable. Why would a double bass player choose to play this in this key? And it wasn't. It was always in D.
But how does that work out? Right, that's great. But how did that work out then, playing live with Paul in that E flat? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but the thing is, when it came out, so when they recorded it, recorded it in D, but when it went into production,
right,
that's when they must, so when it was sold, when it was commercially sold,
right,
it was in E flat.
Yeah. And
when I got given the copy to learn to play Paul, it was in E flat.
Yeah.
But it should have been in D.
Yeah.
But no one said, oh yeah, we changed the speed of it, but let's just do it in D, because that would have made my life so much easier.
Right.
So Carlos got the easy part, playing it in the studio on the recording.
Yeah.
And I got upper semitone, and I'm thinking, that's why the fingering was really horrible.
That is a great
story.
So
I discovered the truth from the horse's mouth, straight from
from the horse's mouth.
That's probably my biggest, almost like soloist thing on television. So.
That's such a great story. I also have written down, and I didn't ask you yet, about Paul Simon. I was also going to ask you about Paul Simon. Just like the cheese.
You're reading our mind.
Right, just like the cheese. You knew that we needed to know about cheese.
And Paul
Simon. It's amazing. And I didn't ask you, and you come up with it.
No, but because it's just that was one of the highlights. I mean, people say to me, they say, who are your favorite people you've worked with? It's interesting because if you speak to different guys in Jools' band, I'm sure you'll get a lot of different replies. Because if you spoke to our guitarist, he might say all like B.B. King, and sort of Dave Gilmour and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I love those guys as well. But for me, it's definitely more the people that I grew up listening to. So my older brothers were Simon and Garfunkel fans, so I was very familiar with them. And then Paul Solo. So that was a highlight for me. Definitely Smokey Robinson, because I loved sort of Motown stuff as a kid. 100% Shaka Khan, because I had all albums. I was still am a big Shaka Khan man.
Right.
And Al Jarreau, Al Jarreau, I adored him. I listened to his music most of my young adult life, So when I got to play with him on Jools' show, I'm literally losing my mind, because these, and George Benson was another one, again, used to have all of his albums, still have his albums, and we got to play with him on the TV show. So those are my, and later on, I get Amy Winehouse, it was great working with Amy.
Wow.
She was really special, but those are my top picture. It's so weird, people that I would have never dreamt of meeting, playing with when I was a kid. But I had all their albums, and it's
And you probably have to, you're focusing on what you need to do. You got to kind of take your mind out of that. Like, how did I get here?
Yeah, because, well, I don't know if you saw this, but today, I think it was today, I posted on Instagram, and because I found some vinyl albums about Al Jarreau stuff.
Yeah.
And I remembered that when I played with him, I was such a big fanboy that I just couldn't stop myself.
Oh, you had him
I
signed.
had to take the,
Yeah.
And he signed them for me,
Nice.
Yeah.
And he was so sweet because one of them was Breaking Away, which came out in '81, and it was an old album, of course. And he was so sweet, and I think he wrote on it. He said, "Oh, Dave," he said, "you do realize this has to be back at the museum before 5
Yeah.
That's so kind of humble and good-natured, which I was so pleased about. But yeah, I mean, those are the ones that I really love playing with, But they're all great, and they all have their challenges, both musically and dealing with personalities as well, kind of thing,
Yeah.
But that's the great thing about this gig. It not only, my musicianship has improved massively since I got the Jools gig, but also, I guess my people skills have as well, because you've had to meet very, very, very iconic artists, and you've just got to know how to behave, because it's easy to say to do the wrong thing, and then your career's potentially over.
Yeah.
Not to mention that night might not go well if you say the wrong thing. Yeah. Your career as well. Yeah.
So, Dave, it was
exactly that. So
great talking to you.
Wonderful talking with you.
Yeah. I think we got you at the right time because you got a lot going on.
Right.
The next couple months.
Yeah.
Maybe beyond.
Yeah.
But
well, funnily enough, I've just been doing lots of charts this afternoon because obviously tomorrow it's Halloween, so I've got to be. I'm going to be with Oscar. We're going to be doing lots of spooky stuff. So I wanted to get my earlier today, So
get your homework done.
So I think so. We're rehearsing on what day is it? So Halloween's. So we've got rehearsals with Jools on Wednesday. We've got a whole day of rehearsal. Jools doesn't like to rehearse for days on end. He hates that. He's a tennis man. He's not that kind of thing. So we do just one day, full day of rehearsals, and that we're done. So it was perfect timing, and I hope that what I said was good. And do forgive me because I know I talk a lot. I talk a lot. I talk very fast. So.
No,
we love
very
it.
Clear as well.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. Thanks so much.
Have a great evening.
Take care.
Guys.
All right. Thanks you
again.
Thank you.
You've been listening to No Good Music. Today's interview was produced and edited by Rob J. Lilly and recorded via Zoom at the Did You Say 7 Studios in Washington, New Jersey. You can find No Good Music on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Pandora, and almost anywhere you listen to podcasts. Intro and exit music by the band 99%.